Hello, this is Daniel Serridge and welcome to Village Stories at Home. I'm here to tell you a story whilst I take some time away from looking after my son, which I have been doing a lot of recently, and it's nice to be here to talk to you and to tell you a story that comes all the way from Ireland. It's part of the Irish mythology cycle. It is a story that tells of one of the greatest warriors that Ireland has ever seen, a demigod, if you will, called Fionn. It's an important name to me because it's the same name as my son, Fionn, who in some ways is named after this great giant of a man. Now, how much you know about Fionn doesn't matter. Whether you knew he built a causeway across from Ireland to Scotland to fight a Scottish giant, whether you know he dressed up as a baby to defeat said Scottish giant, whether you know whether he created the Isle of Man, or indeed you know of his son, Oisin, who disappeared off to the land of the fairies to marry the fairy queen, it doesn't matter. Today I'm going to tell you a simple story, a story about the joys of the small things, of the small pleasures that might be important to find at a time like this. Before I start the story, I'm going to give you a riddle. The answer might be found inside the story, but I'll give you some time to think about it. And the riddle is this: what is broken the moment you say its name? What is broken the moment you say its name? See if you can work it out. In our story, Fionn finds himself on the west coast of Ireland with all his Fianna, his warrior brothers. It is a point in their lives where they need to rest. They need to take time out. They need to stop for a moment. And they've come to that perfect place on a mountain where the wind is blocked out by the mountain behind you and the mountain faces the sunset. So you can stand on top or sit on top and watch the sun dip into the ocean, feeling its warmth for as long as possible, all the while keeping the chill of the wind away from the back of your neck. Tea has been drunk, food has been eaten, and everyone sits watching the sun disappear into the ocean, when somebody notices all of a sudden that Fionn has been standing staring to the horizon for a long time, and it's only when a single tear rolls down his cheek does one of his brothers, Conan McMorna, ask him, "Fionn, what is it that you're thinking of?" And he turns to face all the people he's with and he says, I am wondering, what is the sweetest sound? Well, everybody starts looking at each other, curious, and then they pull that face that only happens when someone is looking truly within themselves to discover the answer to the question. Well, the first person to hear the question was, of course, Conan, and he very simply says the simplest, most beautiful sound, sweetest sound of them all is the sound of a baby's first cry as it pierces the air. Wolgol, his brother, completely disagrees and says that the sweetest sound there is the sound of the shoreline as the waves lap over the rocks back and forth again and again. Diarmid dismisses both of them. He says, no, the finest sound of them all is the sound of a steel blade piercing through the hearts of your enemy. Oisin, Fionn's son, who's always been known as the poet, he says, no, the sweetest sound that there is the rustle of the leaves on the autumn trees as they cling on for as long as possible before eventually slowly descending down and landing upon the frosted grass that lurks at the roots of their tree. They all share their stories, whether it be the sound of rain on canvas during the night, whether it be the sound of the wind rustling past your ears as you run and run and run. Everyone has a sweeter sound. And as they all share their stories of their sweetest sound, the hours pass, the sun dips into the ocean, and a coolness descends on the mountainside. People wrap the shawls around their necks. When the last person speaks, a silence descends. Each and every one take a moment to enjoy the sounds that are in their heads. They hear them over and over again as they sit in silence. Eventually the silence is broken when Conan yet again sees Fionn looking out to the horizon, and he says, "Fionn, nobody asked you, what is your sweetest sound?" And as Fionn stands in the silence of his brothers, he looks out and he speaks and he says, "The sweetest sound for me is the sound of now." And that is the story. And I hope that wherever you are, whatever you're doing, how you're spending your time, if you have slowed down, if you have stopped, if you have taken a break, I hope that you're enjoying the sweet sound of now and taking pleasure in the small moments that we perhaps couldn't hear before. Now, how did you get on with that riddle? What is broken the moment you say its name? If you haven't got the answer yet, then I ask you all right now, where you are, where you're sitting, wherever you are, just be quiet. Silence. Silence is broken the moment you say its name, and that will probably make you sigh in frustration. Thank you for listening to Village Stories at Home. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be sharing a new story every Friday on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook and SoundCloud, and we hope you'll keep listening and perhaps share these stories. Thanks for listening.